My family kicked me out during Christmas dinner. We've all decided, you should leave and never come back, my sister said. I just smiled. Okay then. I guess you won't be needing this. Then I tore up an envelope and walked out. When they saw what I'd destroyed, they started screaming. We've all decided that you have to leave and never come back. That's what my sister Janet said. Right there, in front of everyone, serving her stupid cranberry sauce as if it were a normal holiday. Mother didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She nodded her head as if it were a board meeting and she were the chairwoman approving the decision. Father stared at his plate. Kyle stared at me. It was Christmas dinner. The house smelled of cinnamon, garlic, and forced smiles. I was sitting between my mother and the artificial poinsettia when they told me I was no longer welcome. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I already knew. I had come here to tell them what I should have told them years ago. Something they wouldn't like to hear. So I just smiled. I took a white envelope out of my purse and held it up. Everyone looked at it. They knew what it was. Earlier, I had hinted that I had brought something important for Kyle. Okay, I said. I guess you don't need it. And I tore it open. Once, twice, 3 times. Little pieces scattered across the carpet. Mom gasped as if I had set the Christmas tree on fire. Janet even stood up as if she was going to attack me. It was a tuition check. The one I promised Kyle I'd bring to pay for his next semester. A 5-figure sum. Gone. I turned and walked out. No jacket. No goodbye. Just the screams behind me, the click of my boots on the icy steps, and the feeling that something huge had just fallen into place. Let them scream. Let them sit in that house full of decorations and lies. I kept this family afloat for years. I paid their electricity bills, their car payments, Kyle's tuition. I sacrificed my 20s working overtime while they smiled on Christmas cards. I gave and gave. Until now. Because this time, I didn't come to give, I came to end this. And I'm not done yet. When I got back to my apartment, my phone was blowing up. 17 missed calls from my mom. 4 from my dad, which was more than I'd gotten in the entire last year. 1 from Janet, which I didn't even bother to listen to. And 1 text from Kyle. I'm sorry. I didn't know they would do that. I didn't reply. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my father. The subject line read, Family Responsibilities. I didn't even have to read it to know what it was about. Some long attempt to get me to come back, apologize, and send money. The usual. I deleted it. Then the group chat popped up. My mom added me back as if nothing had happened. She sent a photo of the tidy living room and wrote, We missed you this morning. Hope you've thought things over. Thought things over? I'd been thinking about it for months. I sat in my car after a 12-hour shift and wondered why I was the only one doing all the work. I was the one they relied on in every emergency, when bills were forgotten, when wrong decisions were made. My parents stopped paying for Kyle's college after his freshman year, citing unexpected financial difficulties, but they still went to Napa last spring. Janet, who made $80,000 a year in marketing, said she was broke every time tuition was due. So I paid. I paid because Kyle was young, smart, and never asked for anything. But I was tired. And this year, I wasn't going to play the savior. On the 3rd day, Kyle showed up at my house. I didn't even let him in. He must have followed someone home. He stood there in his big coat, looking 10 years older. I just wanted to say that I understand. You don't owe me anything. I let him in. He sat down on the couch, didn't ask for water, didn't make conversation. He just stared at the floor. They said they'd help, he said. They said they'd cover next semester. Then 2 weeks ago, my mom called and said, You're going to have to do it again. Of course she did. They always said you had more, so you had to do more. I didn't even know about the envelope. I believed him. Kyle was a complex person, passive, quiet, too forgiving, but he wasn't a liar. I'm not mad at you, he said. I'm just tired of being their excuse to pick on you. He left with a plan to talk about financial help, maybe find a job, maybe take a break if he had to. I didn't tell him what I was planning to do next. Not yet. But the manipulation wasn't over. Not even close. Because a week later, I found out what my parents were really spending the money I was sending them on. And it wasn't just for Kyle's education. I found out by accident. That's the worst part. I wasn't even looking. I called the bank to cancel the old standing order I had set up to transfer $300 to my parents' account every month. It was supposed to be for utilities, groceries, and things for Kyle when he was still living with us. I hadn't questioned it for years. Until now. The woman on the phone confirmed that the transfer had gone through as usual. But when I asked her to read the last few transactions associated with that account, I noticed something strange. 4 separate payments, all over $500, made to a landscaping company. 2 to something called Marina Clubhouse. 1 payment, $2,300, to Sunset Ridge Golf and Spa. I thought it must be a mistake. I called these companies directly. It wasn't a mistake. My parents had been using my money for years, not just to survive, but to have fun. Luxury items, memberships at a private yacht club, spa visits, organizing some kind of neighborhood club events. I sat with my laptop open, looking at the statements, and felt the heat rising to my neck. All those nights I worked late, gave up vacations, turned down the heat in my apartment to save money, so they could drink Chardonnay in a rented house overlooking a lake. That night, I texted Kyle. Do you know anything about a place called Sunset Ridge Golf and Spa? He replied quickly. Mom and Dad go there every Sunday. They say it's for Dad's physical therapy. I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. Loud, bitter, alone in the kitchen. They had deceived him too. They had used his education as bait, made me pay, and then skimmed the top for their own comfort. And all while portraying me as selfish for trying to stop them. That week, I sent my mother one message. Short. No greeting. I'm not paying your bills anymore. Don't contact me unless it's about Kyle. No response. 3 days. Then, of course, the phone rang. Straight to voicemail. She didn't even say hello. Barbaro, we need to talk. Your behavior is very disturbing. I understand that you're going through a difficult time, but punishing your family financially is just, it's not right. You have responsibilities, especially now. The bills need to be paid. Please call me. Responsibility. That word again. At that moment, I realized what I hadn't understood before. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about control. About the illusion that I would be useful as long as I kept quiet. But I wasn't going to keep quiet anymore. And just once, they would find out what it was like to need something. And not get it. It didn't take long. 2 weeks after I disconnected their phone, my father called me from a number I didn't recognize. Of course, I didn't answer. Then I listened to my voicemail. Barb, it's me. Listen, we can talk about what happened over dinner. Your mother is very upset. The electric company is threatening to cut off our power, and frankly, we're both too old to live like this. If you want to prove your point, go ahead, but this is getting ridiculous. I forwarded the message to Kyle with a simple comment. Still think it's because of school? He didn't respond for several hours. When he did, he simply said, "Wow, I'm so sorry." Meanwhile, I started receiving messages from distant relatives. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly started sending me messages like, "Hi, I don't know what's going on, but your parents are going through a tough time. Maybe just be generous." I ignored all the messages. At the end of the month, my sister Janet broke the silence. She sent me an email that was fake-friendly at first, then turned condescending, as only she knows how. I know the situation has escalated, but you can't freeze out your entire family over a few financial disagreements, can you? That's not how adults behave, Barbara. She then sent me a breakdown of shared family expenses, listing everything she thought I owed her. Groceries, property tax, as if I lived there, and as the cherry on top, a suggestion to contribute $1,000 to a reconciliation fund to help my parents get back on their feet. I didn't even respond. I just forwarded it to Kyle with one line. Did you see this? That evening, Kyle called. I'm done with them, he said. They called me last night and said I should try to talk you into it, if I want to stay in their good graces. Good graces. He laughed. Yeah, whatever favor they think they still have. At the time, Kyle was working part-time, tutoring high school students in math and helping out at a bookstore. He told me he was thinking about taking a year off to find a second job. He didn't want anything from me. He just wanted to figure things out on his own. I respected that. I told him I'd help if he really needed it, but not a penny would go through our parents. The next week, my mom sent me a handwritten letter. 3 pages. Half of it was blame, half was self-flagellation. She never once acknowledged what they had done. She never once thanked me for all the years I had helped them. The last line stuck in my mind. You'll regret this, Barbara. Family is forever, whether you like it or not. She was right about one thing. Family is forever. But their free accommodation is not. They held on as long as they could. A month passed. Then 2. No more calls, no messages, no invitations to birthdays or Sunday dinners. It was bliss. But silence, it seems, is an expensive pleasure. In early March, I received a message from my father. We'd like to meet. Just to talk. No pressure. I ignored it. 3 days later, my mother wrote to me. Barbaro, I understand that we weren't perfect. But we're in a difficult situation right now. We've been without electricity for 3 days. Please, let's talk. I almost deleted it. But curiosity got the better of me, and I called Kyle. He answered on the first ring. Yeah, they're really falling apart. Mom said she boiled the bath, and that Dad's car might be taken away. I didn't say anything. I told them they should sell their share of the lake, Kyle continued. Can you believe what my mom said? It's the only way to get away from all this stress. Of course it is. And then came the most interesting part. Kyle said they tried to borrow money from him. He showed me the message. Since your sister is being stupid, could you maybe lend us $400 just for this week? He didn't reply. He was working 2 part-time jobs and barely making ends meet. But for the first time, he didn't turn to me. And then I realized that something had really changed. Not just in me but in him too. I finally replied to my father's message. 1 line. We have nothing more to talk about. But they didn't stop there. 2 weeks later, my parents showed up at my apartment. I didn't let them in. They stood in the hall, holding a folder and a bag of muffins, as if it was some kind of family meeting to make peace. I stared at them through the glass door and didn't move. The phone rang. I didn't answer. Eventually, they left. Later that evening, I checked my mail and found the folder. Inside were all the bills they hadn't been able to pay. Next to each one was a sticker that said, urgent, disconnection notice, and one that said, we are desperate. At the bottom was a handwritten note. We are ready to listen to you. Please come home. I sat with that folder for a long time. Not because I was tempted, but because for the first time in my adult life, they were asking not out of a sense of entitlement, but because they had nothing left to take. I didn't go home. I didn't respond. They had built their lives on assumptions, manipulation, and control. And now the foundation was gone. The bills were no longer my problem. By April, silence had returned. Not the tense silence I had lived with for years. This was something else. There were no more messages making me feel guilty. No more voice messages pretending everything was fine. Just silence. The kind that meant everyone had finally realized what I had known all along. I didn't go back. Janet returned to Seattle and stayed there. She didn't try to contact me. I found out from my cousin that she had complained about me at Easter, saying that I was unstable and probably needed help. Classic projection. It didn't matter. She had always been good at rewriting history to suit herself. My parents kept their distance. They stopped pretending. The only thing I ever heard was from Kyle, who mentioned in passing that my father had taken a second job working nights at a warehouse. My mother started making candles and trying to sell them on Etsy. I saw the page once. Crooked labels, ridiculous prices, 0 reviews. Kyle was still working 2 jobs, saving every penny he could. We met once a week for coffee. He never asked for money, even when I could see he was running out. I gave him small things, an old laptop, a ride when his car broke down, groceries when I saw he hadn't eaten, but it was never charity. Just 2 siblings who finally understood each other without all the noise between us. One night he said to me, you know, it's weird. I feel like I have less now, but I'm freer than I've ever been. I knew exactly what he meant. He eventually enrolled in a state university that offered him enough financial aid to transfer. He moved in with 2 other guys and continued working part-time. It wasn't a luxurious life, but it was his life. I told him that if he ever needed a place to stay, he had a key to my apartment. That was it. As for me, I started traveling, something I had never had the time or money to do before. I saw New Mexico in the spring, hiked in Zion, lived in a cabin with no phone for a week, answering no calls. I started saving again, but this time for myself, not for someone else. Sometimes I get this strange feeling that I've forgotten something important or missed a call that never came. Then I remember, that part of my life is over. They don't need me anymore. Not because they finally realized it, but because I made them do it. I am no longer their safety net, which they never appreciated. And somehow, the world kept turning. Now we all live our own lives. And for the first time in my life, I feel that this life belongs to me.